especially impressed that you all came today. Thank you. I am so pleased to welcome Dr. Wolfram Hoefer. He is a professor of landscape architecture at Rutgers University, and I'm really excited about today's presentation. But first, I also want to thank Juliette Diddell. She has been instrumental in setting up some of these types of programs for us for the Washington-Rochambeau Trail. I'm going to allow her to say a few words because she's kind of the local heroine when it comes to our local history with, if you know that the Triangle Park is now renamed for the Washington-Rochambeau Trail. So I'm going to let her say a few words about that. Please just turn off your phones or set them to vibrate. And thank you both. So thank you, Dr. Hoefer. Thank you, Julia.
Jennifer,
And enjoy every moment.
Thank you. So are we live streaming, Jen?
Yes, we are live streaming.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer, for being so hospitable to the story of the Washington-Rochambeau Revolutionary Route National Historic Trail and how Westfield has made an impact on the trail. Gosh, was it over a year ago that I did a cold email to Dr. Hoefer, inviting him to participate in a project, and lo and behold, Dr. Hoefer saw the benefits for his students and his department and responded positively. And it's been a great process, learning how students work on a master plan. And we have one of the students here today, Lily. Thank you for coming, Lily. The students were really creative. They spent some time here in Westfield, and I appreciate the effort that they put into it. I want to recognize, first of all of you who have contributed to supporting this effort, Nancy Priest and David Rogers, historians that have come before us, and Sam Sharma, one of our great supporters, Ann Freeman on the Westfield Historic Preservation Commission, my husband, Eric Diddell, who's had to live with me all these years. So thank you. And without any further ado, I'll introduce to you Dr. Wolfram Hoefer from Rutgers. Dr.
Hoefer. Julie, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the Westfield Library to give us the space. And this is something I've never, ever done before. I never spoke about student work. Usually, the students do their work, present, and we discuss the presentation of the students. However, now there's no classes, and the semester will start next week. So, Julie asked me to give like a summary of the thoughts and outcomes that students did. And Lily, I hope I'm not messing up too much. All right? So we all know the Washington-Rochambeau Trail. Don't have to say much, I think, to this audience. Basically that the troops also in this very important stage of the War of Independence came through Westfield. And your group, Julie, remember those pictures from the dedication of the Washington-Rochambeau Park, trail park here. And then we all walked the trail basically. Like this is the path, this is Mountain Avenue, this is where everybody walked, and where also the troops walked in the time. So, as you mentioned, Julie, you reached out to us and for the first feasibility explorations. And so you organized the funding by Union County Office of Cultural and Heritage Affairs. And I was able, out of this small funding, pay one of our grad students, an MLA candidate, Josh Cover, who did some investigations. Where did actually the path go? What are the other opportunities in town? So like this brief investigative study, and he came up with that idea and the thought about, well, the troops just passed through. Like nothing really happened. They kind of walked by, right? And so this is the image that shows like the walk by, and his idea was you could put these oxen and soldiers along Mountain Avenue and you could walk by. And actually you, Julie, and your husband, you prepared, like this is a cut, like a model that Josh did out of these. You painted them, put them in the park, and they were there at the opening. So it's just an initiative idea. And with that idea, I thought, wow, this is an interesting topic. The interesting topic, certainly thinking this year, 250 years, our nation, and how do students in landscape architecture would deal with that topic with a landscape architecture approach. As you probably know, landscape architecture designs gardens and parks, but also urban open spaces, plazas, streetscapes, that kind of thing. So how would students in 2026 in an undergraduate program at Rutgers address the American Revolution in a design studio that is about public space? So, not an easy task. So this is an image of the classroom. And so this map on the left, the red line on the left is the trail, how we are. These other pins is where the students actually are from, and they all were asked to give us a response. What is the American Revolution for you? And this big, on the board, were those things. We have so much history in New Jersey, and it's reflected in so many ways. And there are the historical buildings, there are of course the Washington Crossing, and all these other, the Trenton Battleground, so all these other important places. There is a way of documenting them and making them accessible. So we first studied how other people did that, and that's this exercise. How do we in New Jersey review our, make our history accessible? And then we went to town. It was pretty cold. And thank you for clearing up the image at the center for us. And it was super interesting also to speak with the town administrator and with Mayor Berman for the students. One thing is we want to memorialize history, but also understanding the concerns or the goals of the town of Westfield. This is a lovely town, as you all know, right? It's a wealthy, lovely town with a great potential, with great situation, but they showed us also what is transportation issues, and those questions were part of that conversation. Students, clearly you remember that one, right? Students explored in an inventory phase, what is the relationship between local people and these different architectures. These are all architectures from the town in that sequence, what it is. Another group looked at all your stores, and this is an amazing, it's the best mall I would have ever seen, you can say. This collection of stores, an amazing collection of stores, very accessible in this town as one of these high qualities. In the same way, also the map of restaurants is also impressive. So it's a town where you can do a lot of things. And then, of course, students looked into circulation. That map is illustrating what are the main roads. And also, Julie, you remember that conversation, if it's a county road or a state road or a municipal road, that gives limitations on how you can access or change the streetscape. However, with all and also realizing there's not much bicycling in town. There's not much of a bicycle system. We saw some of your planners had developed a bicycle strategy, which is promising. However, there's not much bicycle at a town of this small scale, which I've personally found a little bit surprising. But anyway, starting with this, the students went to 4 fundamental approaches. As I said, the challenge of addressing the American Revolution through landscape architecture design. So, and these teams had teams of 3 or 4, and they had substantial discussions within the team. What does it mean for you, for my life, for my family, and for my identity as an American? So we have these 4 different topics. I will go through them. I'll start with number 1, designing democracy with a focus on veterans. So the group of Nick, Alicia, Thomas, and Daniel, they took the focus on veterans because on a very early moment in the project, they realized, we are talking here about a war. We're talking about the American Revolution, the Revolutionary War. The Washington-Rochambeau Trail it was an important element of a war. So they took, and this is the students' works, not me. They took the Revolutionary War. The star marks that there is a monument in town, how it's commemorized. Revolutionary War is the first of a number of different wars. And the blue marks the time when America and the United States were not in a conflict, like an internal or external conflict. So the very early phases, basically, it is the westward expansion. That's why we have the Northwest Indian War, for example. The consolidation of America, number of, like the southward extension, like the conquest of the Republic of Florida, like how America grew in a way. And then the 19th century, when you look at that, here is the Civil War in between as one of many, right? The Civil War in between. However, most of them were, of course, Indian wars. Like the expansion of the country came along with a lot of things. And then the 19th, or the early 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century, more conflict with government involvement internally, like the Pullman strike. 1894, you may know, this was when the Pullmans, as they were like like building all these railroad wagons, and that company was in trouble. They were cutting wages or putting people off work, and the workers' movement had a strong push against it, and there was lots of conflict, and the government came in, like American military came in. So these red ones are internal conflicts, and then we go to the middle of the 20th century where the phase is actually under Roosevelt. During the New Deal, I believe there was not much money for doing war, so this was a peace period, interestingly. Then, of course, starting the World War II, and then having the Cold War as the big engine of creating wars, with the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and then actually it gets more and more and more. Of course, 9/11 is a significant moment, I would say, and finally, we are still in the middle of it. You all know the World War II memorial here and all the other war monuments in town. So for this group, investigating that, and like certainly when you do this as one really long print, it's even more impressive. Investigating that made them think about what is the role that veterans have today. So the first design by Alicia Fleury for the Washington-Rochambeau Trail Park is to say you take the 13 times folded flag that ends up on a coffin, right, and create that as a reflecting pool in the middle, and then having this is the timeline that I just showed you, right? This is the timeline I just showed you. So you could that timeline place in the grass and have this. So this is the situation at the reflecting pool. You could imagine how this is like a quiet space for contemplation, and then this would be the timeline in the ground, and you could kind of discuss also these different interventions and see what was the rationale behind it, the outcome, and how does it impact us today. The second member of the group, Daniel, took the connecting part. This is East Broad Street, and so for him it was the biggest thing was the transportation problems right now in town, and doing traffic calming measures and having vegetation and plantings that reflects colonial times. So you could walk along that and have that as a method. The Grimby Street by Nick is a temporary, it's like a plug-in plaza situation where you could different installations, different moments per year. And finally, the fourth project within that team by Thomas is saying this is the Lord and Taylor side. And as you probably know, here, this is where all these monuments are, right? This is where all these monuments are. And so next to those monuments, on the current Lord and Taylor side, do a veterans housing that has that's accessible and allows a good housing place for veterans with private interior courtyards, and these would be rooftop situations, so with a lot of open space for the individual person or family. And then towards North Avenue, this would be more like a public-facing space, and towards the train tracks, more like private-facing spaces. So that group took veterans as their topic. The next group took Native Americans as their topic, because they were basically the big losers of the American Revolution, as you may want to say, right? So they took the Native Americans as the topic, and they looked at the Delaware, our local Lenape tribe, and looked at the wolf, the turtle, and the turkey clans, like the wolf clan, the turtle clan, and the turkey clan, indicated here. And they took, when you look at their master plan, you see the triangle part, like the park in the beginning, and they have a path through the park towards, as their final location, also the Lord and Taylor site. So Kylie took the ideas of, or was inspired by the wolf. The wolf clan, about the values of the wolf clan of protection, guardianship, and security. And so her design would create an enclosure in this park so you're protected from the busy streets, and that was her approach to reflect those values of that clan. So with these raised planting beds and having the enclosure around and the totem, like the post in the middle, indicating or reflecting to that park. The second team member talks about the turtle clan, and that is Quimby Street, and she and Avery was very much into adding more vegetation, more trees to the Quimby Street to do that. And more exciting for me is certainly the third team member, Will. He had a little bit of a really interesting approach, a little bit strange, a little bit, to saying, but he's doing it, so to saying the Lord and Taylor parking lot, turning that into a field, but saying it that the Native Americans had this way of farming to always, every growing season, replant and reorganize the crops, but only, so these crops would be reorganized every growing season in a different way. And then during the winter time, you would place, as Native Americans did, place these temporary huts, these temporary longhouses on it, and have offered different workshops, like the bread, textile, pottery, for example, placing those ideas into the town. So group number 2, focusing on Native Americans in this way and expressing that in this way. Group number 3 took a really, really, again, very different approach, and I would probably say more historian mainstream approach, you can say. Because taking historic, like, images that represent events of the American Revolution, and project them on buildings, and have, like, look at events of the American Revolution and events afterwards. So the Maya's design for the Washington-Rochambeau Trail Park is keeping the existing existing bike at the center that you cleaned up for us in the winter. So that would stay, and that would be the core of ripples that represent, and of course the ripples, how the American Revolution influenced a number of lives and still influences our lives. And so along these ripples going towards the edge of the park, these little round things here, these dots, that would be small engraving stones that, almost like a little Wikipedia thing, tell you some events, some relevant events, and then, like, for example, the Battle of Trenton, but also opening of Central Park, or the Voting Rights Act, or Obergefell versus Hodges. So different events in the American history that you could kind of experience on this walkable timeline coming through, and then, but all of this as an attractive park where people could sit and hang out in this ripple effect garden. For Broad Street, here's an example of taking what Vanisha was pushing for, to say, taking, for example, this is the very, very famous Washington Crossing image right there, and saying, how do you, like, what are the different facades in town, and how you would actually not just project them, but paint them on it. And this design process was very carefully saying, how can you place that image on the facade that it kind of interacts with the facade. So how would that relate to the architecture that Vanisha was doing? And so Imre had, like, her thing was to look at the, how do you view those? So her design, Imre's design, looks at places, benches. So in this little sketch here, you see these are the place benches, and then the images on the other side. And you would, for example, here at the Sum Ramen, that is the Washington, that is
Valley Forge.
yes, Valley Forge image, at the, and then having these benches here with some vegetation to view this. And that is like the group number 3 takes very famous images that almost everybody knows, like from high school, but puts them in a different context. My group, the group number 4, has this idea of through the glass, a view into history, and they were, and I remember this is Lily, you're part of that group, and I do remember the discussions that you folks had to say your family's immigration history, because most of, like your parents or grandparents immigrated and came to the country, and how your family's histories related your self-understanding as an American, your self-understanding of the American Revolution, and you very much looked into the time, like into the idea of what is immigration and how did immigration form this country. So you're, and I don't know who did that image. Remember, like this one. Remember who did that?
Celine.
Celine, right? So from the Washington-Rochambeau trail park up here, the cemetery and church, and then Quimby Street and Elm Street. These were the interventions that you guys took, all under the theme of immigration. And the thing is also, like, one of the important things, these glass panels. That was your big thing to say. The glass panels are show edgings in life size of immigrant folks, and you could, the relationship to history is like when you have a monument or something, you can, I'm here, there's the monument, right? You look at the monument. The idea of the edging is that today's person could kind of merge with the historic person, because it's this glass edging you kind of shine through. I think that's what you guys did. Reflect this way. This was your idea, right? That you guys did. And so under this note, Tekoa took the, like this is again, the image of the Washington crossing the Delaware, and Tekoa took that as a centerpiece for the Washington Trail Park, and placing then further images along further these glass panels along the park, so you would kind of be behind it and within it to experience that different phase in history. And of course, along the Washington-Rochambeau Trail Park, the etched images, these glass panels, reflect people from the colonial period, Native Americans, American soldiers, British soldiers, like all these different were part of the mix, were at the Washington-Rochambeau Trail Park up there. The connection, that's what Joshua was looking into. This is the that's the entrance to the cemetery, right up here. And then redesigning the entrance to the cemetery so it becomes more inviting, becomes more accessible. And the church, and I really learned a lot about the history of the church and how this was already an important factor during the American Revolutionary time. And that again, you kind of walk through these glass panels pieces here with explanations coming towards downtown. And this is where, actually this is Lily's, that's your design, right here. And where these glass panels on the sidewalk would be exactly also an angle that you could come behind it and it could shine through. What I find particular from a urban planning, landscape architecture point of view is you probably noticed that the cars are only going one way. So the proposal is that Elm Street would become a one-way street, which would give more space for outdoor seating in the restaurants, but also would give space for 2 bicycle lanes in both directions. And certainly a bike lane, this one is protected with posts, and this one is protected with these planting areas, so you would have safe biking through town that we believe would certainly improve students' beliefs, and I do believe that very much, to improve quality of life, but also is an active contribution to fight climate change. If you can use the bicycle and not the car, this is a little bit helping to reduce climate change. The other thing that this design includes is rain gardens and stormwater management, because we have, as you just right now, we had a very, very heavy rain, and these heavy rains are increasing, and so these rain gardens will collect some of the first flush of the rain. And then this same street at night, you would have that experience of they would be illuminated and give these different images, giving different stories of different immigrant folks and kind of exposing us to these different narratives. And then of course the little benches seating there, allowing for casual seating, and the restaurant seating spaces available. And finally, from this team, that's Celine's design, that is for Quimby Street. And I think in your town the discussion is already to make Quimby Street a pedestrian zone. And so this is one addition to say, what about if the pedestrian zone adds these glass panels? This would be actually, this one is a couple from Cuba, right? I think that's what it is. So have these planters, but like little mounds of grass. And there is this, and Celine was very carefully making sure that a fire truck or delivery truck can get through, so that it's still safe, so that even if you do these individual things, of course, as a professional landscape architect, you have to think about safety and accessibility, so that this would come through. And then this could also become like a beautiful nighttime activity area for events in town, where these mounds and these benches could utilized. Actually, so the I was quicker than I thought. Yes. So maybe we have a little bit of time for a conversation. So these 4 themes of different approaches to how do we address the American Revolution and how Westfield would live with it, because this is not about a passive memory like a memorial or something, because these designs intend to shape the town in a way that history is something with a relationship to today, and history is something that not only informs us but also challenges us today for our actions in how we behave. The summary of these projects can be seen in the storefront of AutoCare. We just printed up this afternoon, so that's the exhibit. That you please, if you have a chance, look at the work carefully, tell your friends to come to AutoCare. We will keep it up until middle of October, and it's accessible and like for everybody at any time. Thank you, Julie, for making that store available for us. And on that note, I would say thank you, and any questions you may have, and we have time for a good conversation. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Had you considered, these are all lovely, but had you considered parking? Because that is a big, big issue in them. we've gone through it many years and we never seem to solve the problem. In fact, many times these one-way streets and
Mhm.
whatnot takes away from traffic, from parking.
True, and certainly when I think, Lily, you're one of the culprits here, right? When I think about this design, we did in the inventory study very well parking. And on the one hand, it is an issue, but it's also really well managed. You have a lot of parking spaces. And like whenever we came, we never had an issue to finding parking. It's a question of convenience, how close you can get. And it's also a question of values. If it is essential that you are exactly, is it better that there's more cars even on this side, or you can actually sit there? And so because the car takes a lot of space, and that is an ongoing discussion in any town. So one of these approaches is to say, probably not everybody is a bicycle fanatic as myself, as I am, but for many folks may be able to use the bicycle, and with that also reduce transportation. So we are totally, like the students were aware of this conflict, this challenge. We did a map on parking, availability of parking. However, it is a question of values. How much space do you give the car, and how much space do you give the people? There's no golden bullet for it, right? That's the thing. Yes.
Could you put up the one that shows the front of the church?
Yes. Yep, there you go.
That's terrific. Realizing in revolutionary times, that church wasn't there.
But there was another church there.
No, it was
There was
across the street.
Across the street. So we could do a glass panel with a church in it.
Possibility. That illustration brings up a number of fantastic possibilities.
Okay.
Really terrific. The cemetery one, can you put that one up?
David, what particularly do you like about it? Does it soften the?
I think it softens the area. I think it brings about what is published in a lot of old publications, that it's the town green. I think it's a little bit
More inviting as a green?
yeah, a lot of trees. It's a bit more inviting. The sidewalk is a lot nicer, wider, and less commercial than what is there now, which is concrete fixed a few times. I like the brick border along the curb
And the greens.
and the green in there.
Yeah,
uh,
to separate.
I would ask you, Wolfram, have you ever heard of the, who designed Central Park?
Olmsted.
Olmsted. The Olmsted Trail that was supposed to connect all the parks in Union County.
Not heard about the Olmsted Trail. I'm very aware of all the Olmsted parks in New
Okay.
Jersey, which are plenty.
There is really only one piece of it that we really know about,
Yeah.
and that goes from Elizabeth to the end, from the end of, it's Westfield Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
It goes through Roselle Park as well, and then stops somewhere around the Parkway. But, some reminiscence of what Olmsted had in mind
Mm-hmm.
going through the area. Unfortunately, the streets that we have now, and Westfield Avenue Extension, North Avenue and South Avenue are
Mm-hmm.
quite crowded.
Mm-hmm.
But is there an opportunity there to get some green space to get from Elizabeth all the way up to Plainfield?
Well, that would be reintroducing the original Olmsted concepts.
Yeah.
Like Olmsted, for example, as you know, did the Buffalo Park system,
Yes.
did the Boston General Necklace, and also like the Newark Park, and so there is and very important for Olmsted was, it's not just the park, but the connections between the parks. And that is something what these concepts illustrate a little bit in terms of how you can increase, improve street trees or like green connections along the park. And these are becoming even more relevant for a town like Westfield when we think about street trees that actually provide shade. As at the and allow, like, forgive me if I say that. The first time, this is like 20 years ago, when the first time I visited Westfield, friends are showing me all the awesome places in New Jersey, and there were some really nice big trees on the downtown, right? And they actually gave shade. And now you cleaned up the downtown, and now you have ornamental trees. The positive thing about an ornamental tree is it allows for everybody to see the storefront and see the signs of the storefront. However, I'm not so sure if somebody drives by Mrs. Urban Outfitters if not seeing the storefront or the awnings of that. So what I'm trying to say is that following Olmsted's ideals to say add more like shade trees in an urban condition will also be an active, positive improvement of urban climate and of fighting climate change. Like, if you have a hot and humid day, it is currently not so nice to go in all these great stores in Westfield. But if you have some shade trees, that's very helpful. So,
these are very nice sketches.
Yeah.
But it would be more realistic if you showed before and after images. Before with all the SUVs, all the storm drains, the telephone poles,
yes.
the street lights, and the signs, the invasion of street signs. No right turn on red and everything.
Yes.
It's beautiful, and the trees are too small. A tree has to be over 40 feet to affect the climate at all. It's very interesting, but I work for architects, and we had problems trying to conform to a designer's views with realistic, workable construction.
Number one, none of these are realistic workable constructions, of course, because that's not like the point of the class was, like in this class, it was about this visionary thinking. Other classes, and actually Lily, you will be a teaching assistant this fall in that class, like our construction classes are very detailed about making this in the real world. There's different ways of thinking depending on which class you take. And of course, street trees there's a science on street trees. There's a big challenge. How do you create the soil that the tree will actually survive? Like street trees usually don't live more than 30 years if they're in a good situation, if they're really happy and that it works well. So for street trees, it is a very little root space. You have the salt of the cars, and you have maybe some oil even. You have this compression. So it is a miserable living situation for a tree. And so the different techniques, for example, a design like this would give the street tree more root space. And so there are also techniques how to expand the root space for the tree under the paving. So that would be something that is helpful. And you're absolutely right, helpful to do a before and after picture. We didn't do, it was not my assignment, let's put it that way, right? I didn't assign that, but it may be a good, because here, of course, you see this road is packed with cars and the SUVs parking on, filling it up. So the assignment here was that visionary thinking, and I'm all with you. The actual question of implementing these climate change actions in an urban or suburban context have tons of technological questions. The survival of the trees is just one of the many.
One of the interesting architectural schemes I've seen is Asian cities will build skyscrapers with built-in terraces for vines and plants, and the building is half masonry and half greenery all the way up to the top. It's
Maybe you've seen,
interesting.
maybe you've seen the initial designs for the new World Trade Center. The initial designs, like for the design competition for the World Trade Center, were about like that. But the New York real estate market did not want to waste space in the buildings for that. And so it's a question of real estate
That was
market.
the Daniel Libeskind design with 8 different levels with trees inside the World Trade Center. He won the competition with that, and then came the port authority. They said, well, we're giving away roughly 40% of the real estate.
Well,
What did you smoke? And then that was off the table.
the problem is real estate interests. Landlords need to make money, and
Yep.
terraces with trees and vines on them
They'll
don't
make
make money.
Yeah.
The higher landscapers with no fear of heights.
Right. So, but another concept from Asia is the sponge city. We're basically saying you could develop a city like a sponge, and these rain gardens are part of that idea to make sure you have more space where water can infiltrate and be stored underground, in roof gardens, in rain gardens, with treescapes. So this idea, originally Asia developed, the Austrians do a lot of that. Vienna is totally following that sponge city concept. So that is a approach where even in real world settings, we can try to keep more water in place. For the one reason is for reduced flooding, and for the second reason you have water available for the plants in the hot summer. Ma'am.
First, thank you so much for your presentation. All the projects are really amazing. You may have said this in the beginning, but did your students get the chance to present it to the town, like their projects?
We invited the town to come to the final presentation. Julie, you were there at the midterm and final presentation, and you actually were at the midterm, right? Midterm presentation, and so this is when and that's an important part in our education, that we speak with the partner who plays the client, right? So this was a situation where the city and the historic organizations were our client and were invited to come to the midterm and final presentation. We had, you probably saw the slide in the beginning about our meeting with the mayor and the town administrator about the goals of the town, and then their schedules didn't allow them to come. So that was that presentation. That was actually, that's the final exam of the class, was that. To say that in this class, the final exam is the presentation to the professionals, to the client and other invited professionals to do that. And so we also shared, every student, every group developed a little report. So we have different reports. And so we shared these reports with Julie and with the town. So these are available. And one thing about this exhibit at the end, what we are hoping is with this exhibit, that's kind of even more summary than I gave. Like, of course, the projects are much more in depth than I could summarize them. But this exhibit will be a chance for folks to look at them a little bit more carefully. Everybody, please feel free to reach out to me or to Julie if any of these questions that you may have, to see how they can actually be the contribution to the current discussion. Right? But your point of asking, did we present to the client? We invited them for that. Yes.
One of the things about trees in this town, and I don't know if it's throughout New Jersey, but I think it is. The PSE&G comes around and totally destroys every large tree in town because of the wires.
Yeah.
And I've brought it up to my councilman, and I said, this is one of the problems, so many trees are falling.
Yeah, exactly, you're right.
But, they continue to do it.
That is a New Jersey-wide problem, actually in a United States-wide problem. And the American Society of Landscape Architects has that on their agenda. Like, we are the lobby group for the trees, as many other lobby groups for trees. So the clipping and the damaging of the trees because of the wires is a very, very big topic. The only real solution is to put the wire on the ground.
But this is the case on Main Street.
On Main Street,
Broad
that's true.
Street has
Yep.
everything underground, and
Well, yeah, they do there, but
Not across, so the
not on this.
like it, for most of the other parts where wires are still up, Of course, it's very expensive to put them now into ground. New developments have the wires into the ground, and and all our outages in heavy storms is because trees fall. And so there's the real solution would be to put them in the ground, as did on Main Street. But that is, it's this. It's easier to put the wire quickly up, like in my country where I came from originally, from Germany. We have all the wires in the ground, which means also, but putting new internet lines or other lines is more expensive and does more effort because you have to dig it up. But you have no place for street trees. Still, it's not the, even if you look into New York City, in those situations with all these wires and pipes and sewage canals and all of this in the ground, you have to really work hard to find the root space for the tree. But what you're saying is a common problem all across the United States, and the only reason is to put them in. Yes, sir. Were you saying something?
Dr. Hoefer, could you go back to the cemetery, to the entrance to the cemetery, the burial grounds?
Well, the inspiration for Josh was to say it's just like the wall is not stable, it's not solid, and so that could be a way of making it more welcoming from the streetscape. Yeah.
No comment?
Yep, there's a comment here. Question?
Professor,
Yeah.
your speech, presentation is very inspiring, informational, entertaining, and uplifting.
We need that. Thank you.
A 300-year-old Westfield, we have full confidence that it could get better.
We always have that. Things can be
Because
better.
your talk is visionary.
Right.
Yes, it will cost, what is $1 billion to do it,
Yeah.
but that's a good goal.
Yeah.
I wish I were your student and talk about Westfield. We have a lot of good plans, how to get them better.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you well.
Thank you.
I thank you very much. And let Rutgers be as good as State University
Mhm.
and Harvard are better.
Thank you so much. I think it's a great closing comment, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoefer. And hopefully this isn't the end of the story for Rutgers and Westfield, but we'll give you a little break. You're on to Pennsauken now, aren't you?
Yes, we are going to Pennsauken, another town that needs some help. But actually, they think that also Pennsauken is a town that is by far not as healthy and nice. But they're looking at places like Westfield as a good example. A really good